Yes, you're right. This is the killer doll from Squid Game. Have you guys all watched Squid Game? I recommend it because I just think it's super interesting and super cool because all the characters and the plot is just very unique, and I just couldn't stop watching it. That is why I decided to dress up as the doll from Squid Game for Halloween because I love it. And so, back on track. Today I am going to read to you some horror stories, and I hope that this can make you fall asleep, or maybe not, but it's okay. I just hope you guys enjoy these horror stories because I personally really like listening to those urban legends and just our Asian horror stories, and so I hope that I can share these with you. So I found several stories and I'm gonna read to you now. Please relax and get ready for some spooky stories. Sorry, before this, let me just put some lotion on my hand real quick. So, the first story is called Karaoke because it took place in a karaoke. Are you ready for this? Yeah? Okay, I will read it to you now. After a rough breakup with her long-term boyfriend, Stefan invited her best friend Cindy out to sing karaoke to their heart's content. They booked a room for two and sang for a 4-hour stretch. While their karaoke session was about to end, the bell came, and Cindy sounded out that there was a problem. Sorry, excuse me, I think there is a problem. Only 2 of us are singing, but why are you charging for 3? Wait a minute, I'll check with my manager. The waiter then returned and firmly insisted that there was no problem with the bill and asked the girls to pay up. Thinking that they had visited a black shop, the duo insisted to see the manager. The manager spoke to them and it escalated into a dispute. Seeing that the girls would not back down, the manager then led the girls to the CCTV room. Replaying back the earlier footages, it clearly displayed that there was indeed a long-haired girl who had been following closely behind them the moment they entered the shop. When they were inside the room, there was a dark shadow sitting at the edge of the couch while the girls were seated at the other end. Realizing what had really happened, the girls quickly paid up and went off without getting the change. So, next time when you go to a karaoke session and they allocate you to a larger room when there's only a few of you, you should better think twice. The next story is called People Across the Block. My maternal grandma lives alone at Beddock, North Road Block 1XX. My mom would go over to visit her regularly, about twice a week, Mondays and Saturdays and on Wednesdays. She would fetch my grandma to my house at Siglab for dinner. Somewhere in August, on one of the regular Mondays. As usual, my mom went over to my grandma's house. Like any daughter, she would always ask if she had been living well. Did she had her meals on time? As always, my grandma would always reply that she was fine and well. Apart from some old people's sickness, my grandma told my mom, "It's so strange lately. In the evening, a lot of people will come to the park across the block and just sit there, stand there, or even lie there. There's men, women, and young kids as well, and they would be there throughout the whole night until the next morning, where they'll go away. That's so strange. Don't they feel cold at night? And why don't the police chase them away?" My mom did not think much of it and told my grandma, "Mind your own business." Anyway, the matter was laid to rest and they didn't talk about it. Not until the week after, on Wednesday. After having dinner at my house, my grandma brought the matter back again while they were sending her back home. My mom again told my grandma to mind her own business, and once they dropped her off, my dad turned to my mom and said, "Isn't it the lunar 7th month? Could she be seeing things?" My mom said, "Okay, let's test it out. Let's stay here till 10 p.m. Therefore, my parents drove around the vicinity like silly fools until it's 10 p.m. My mom then told my dad to park the car by the park while she walked to the park. She didn't give my grandma a call. When my grandma answered the phone, my mom told my grandma, "Go and take a look at the park from your window. Do you see people loitering around?" My grandma walked around the window and said, "Ayo, so many people loitering around." My mom looked around the park surroundings. No one was there. My grandma then said, "Ayo, so many people loitering in the park." My mom looked around again. However, there was no one. She freaked out and ran back to the car and told my dad to just drive home. On the journey back, my dad chided my mom. "You kept telling your mom not to be a busybody, yet you are trying to be one. And now you have frightened yourself. Let this incident cool down. I'm sure once the lunar 7th month is over, your mom won't be seeing such a thing anymore." So, my mom waited patiently till the lunar 7th month was over. She then resumed her visits. On one occasion, she brought mooncakes for her to eat. It was a long day, and before she knew it, it was already 7 in the evening. Unable to contain her concern, she asked, "So, do you still see people loitering downstairs at the park?" My grandma said, "Yes, they're still there." Mom said, "Really? How is it possible?" Grandma said, "You don't believe? I'll show you." The both of them went to the window and looked down on the park. My mom could not see anyone. Mom said, "Where? I don't see nobody." Grandma said, "Aya, can't you see they are slowly coming out already?" Where?" "Ayo, did you see that these two people are sitting underneath that tree?" No? I'm so old, my eyesight is so much better than yours. See those two under the tree, the grandma said. She pointed down at one of the trees in the park. I cannot see it. How can you not see? I see so clearly. The two of them. See, they are even looking up at us right now. That was when my mom freaked out and dragged my grandma away from the window. After that incident, she warned my grandma to not look towards the park anymore, and she told us not to mention about it ever again. The next story is called Hotel Bed. Joshua checked into the hotel and was quite happy that day had ended early for him. Away and alone on an important business trip, he had wanted some time for himself to explore the city, but the thoughts of getting up early the following day made him postpone his plan. After a hot shower, he continued to use his laptop to update his family on his well-being. Unknowingly, it was past midnight and he wanted to retire from the night. He crept into the comfort of the bed quilt and slowly drifted into sleep. The next morning, Joshua woke up as usual and prepared himself for the day. However, he kept remembering a strange occurrence that happened last night while he was in his dreams. The dream took him back to the exact setting of his hotel room, and at the dressing table was a lady sobbing softly. She drew his attention. He cautioned toward the lady, and she softly lifted her head. Joshua stopped at his track. He could see that the lady was trying to speak to him. Her lips were moving, but he could not hear anything. After which the dream ended. The strange memory lingered in his head for the entire day. At the end of the second day, Joshua had already forgotten about the incident. He was more than happy to be able to return home soon. He decided to rest early for that night. As soon as he fell into deep sleep, he could make out of what he thought was footsteps walking across the hotel carpet in his room, and it stopped just at his bedside. He decided to ignore it as he thought that he was too tired and that he had been imagining things. It was then he heard mumbling at his ear. The female voice was soft and he could not understand what she was trying to tell him. It continued, and the mumbling became louder and louder until Joshua could fully understand what he had heard. We are back to back, heart to heart. In a single jot, he sprang awake and jumped right out of bed. His eyes nearly popped out of its sockets. He could not apprehend what he saw. Right underneath his bed was a corpse which appeared to be bound at hands and feet, and the mouth was apparently gagged. However, the corpse was facing down, meaning the back of the corpse was against the mattress. It was then John realized what did the words "we are back to back, heart to heart" really means. The next story that I'm about to tell you is not as scary compared to what I've read to you so far. This is pretty sad than scary, I would say. So, the black hair. This is a 1,000-year-old legend in Japan. Once upon a time, there was an impoverished samurai living in Kyoto with his wife. A wealthy lord from a distant land invited the samurai to be his vassal. Because it was such an honorable opportunity, he had no choice but to accept, leaving his wife to wait in poverty at home until he returned. Years later, having dutifully served his lord, the samurai finally returned to Kyoto. Although his house was in disrepair, his wife was there to happily welcome him home. Finally reunited, the two spent the entire night talking and laughing together before drifting off to sleep. When the samurai awoke, the warmth he had felt just the night before from having his arms wrapped around his loving wife was no longer there. Instead, he opened his eyes to see what he was only holding a cold skeleton, shrouded in long black hair. The samurai learned that his wife passed away from sadness the summer before, but her skeleton had remained in the house all the while, waiting faithfully for his return. This is a very sad story. And then I'm going to tell you a scarier story that is called the story of Beijing's legendary ghost bus. So it's like a story that took place in China, and it's an urban legend. On November 14th, 1995, a dark night and possibly stormy night, a young man boarded the last bus heading to Beijing's fragrant hills, located in the Haidian district. Shortly after the man boarded the Route 302 bus, two men tried to wave the bus down. According to 2013 Global Times article written by Wang Yu, a college student from Haidian district at the time, the bus driver was initially reluctant to pick the men up because they weren't waiting at a bus stop. However, the driver decided to stop after the conductor reminded him that it was the last bus. So once the mysterious roadside men were on board, passengers were surprised to see that they were wearing some pretty badass Qing Dynasty robes, and that there were actually three men. One with long messy hair, being supported by two roadside creepers. As the story goes, the man's face were much wider than normal persons, and they didn't interact with any of the passengers on the bus. Naturally, commuters are a bit uneasy with the whole situation, but the conductor cooled things over by telling them they were likely actors who had no time to change costumes before leaving work. Slowly, the bus began to empty of passengers until only an old lady and the young man remained inside with the mysterious man. All was quiet until the old woman abruptly accused the man of stealing her wallet, a claim that resulted in an intense argument. The quarrel was resolved when the old lady insisted the pair get off the bus and go to the nearest police station. Once off the bus, the young man grew enraged with the old woman, realizing that he had just got off the last bus and there was no police station in sight. According to the Global Times story, fortunately for the young man, the elderly woman picked up on something he had missed. The three-robed men did not have legs, and by default must have been ghosts. The wind coming in from the window raised their robes, and I saw they didn't have feet. The old lady told the man. The story never does divulge much about what happened to the pair after leaving the bus, but if what happened next is true, then the young man owes his life to the old woman. The following morning, the 302 bus was reported missing.
and according to some variations of the story, it would be 3 days until it was found. The bus was eventually recovered in a reservoir miles away from its final destination at Fragrant Hills, and inside it were 3 heavily decomposed bodies: the driver, the conductor, and one unidentified body with lengthy unkempt hair. In some versions of this tale, police found that the gas tank was filled with blood instead of petrol. According to actual sites, an online paranormal and horror blog, there are a number of mysteries that surround this case, including the fact the bus didn't have enough petrol to get to the reservoir and that the bodies were too heavily decomposed for the relatively short time they were missing. The blog also claims that police officers scored the security footage retrieved from cameras around their reserve and found nothing out of the ordinary. Finally, we have the ghastly tales of Guangzhou's suicide shopping plaza. Many Cantonese see it as no coincidence that the cursive-like character Guang outside of Liwan Plaza in Guangzhou bears an uncanny resemblance to the word for corpse. Since 2004, about a dozen suicides have occurred on the premises, the most recent being this past April. So with some witnesses claiming that a supernatural force seemingly pushed the victims over the railings, the most deadly curse, according to local residents, began many years ago when it was first constructed. If you've ever watched Poltergeist, you will know never to build on ancient burial grounds, but you won't expect a bunch of real estate developers to know that, would you? Home to a Qing Dynasty sacrificial chamber, inspectors failed to notice 8 empty coffins when erecting Liwan Plaza. Now, on a large jewelry market near Shangjiajiu pedestrian street, unearthed during construction, some say the coffins or the cradle of strange noises and mysterious death that kept storefronts ruinously empty. To counteract the malevolence, architects made the building resemble an octagon, like a bagua. Eventually, a Taoist priest informed landlords that the empty coffins had originally been buried to thwart evil influences. The catch was that they were not to be disturbed for 1,000 years. Wow. This reminds me of Jujutsu Kaisen, the anime. Well, I mean, this is very scary. Don't really have to know about the history to understand some supernatural incidents. So thank you for listening to my ASMR, and I hope it is scary for you, or if you like it. And please have a great day today, and great sleep, and enjoy your life, and have fun on Halloween, and yeah. I hope you guys like my costume too. So, bye. Have a good sleep. I will see you in my next video. Bye.